So let's start by thank you for agreeing to be interviewed by me. And
happy to do
if
it.
you could start by introducing yourself and telling people what you do, what for work, who you are.
Hi, friends. My name is Curt Campbell, and I'm from beautiful Egg Harbor, Wisconsin, up in Door County. And my wife and I, my beautiful wife, Amy Jo, and I have been married for 42 years. And about 3 months ago, not 3 months ago, a month ago, I had a bit of a scare, found out that my widowmaker artery was 95% blocked and had a stent put in. And at 5'7", 282 pounds, I needed to change my life. And I knew that exercise is going to be a big part of the rehab program. And 30 years ago, I've got three bikes in the garage, road bikes, had no problem riding Centuries, loved all of that. But when you're really overweight to the point of being obese, it's a game changer. When I started looking into getting back on a bicycle, I found out I was too heavy for the bikes that all the bike shops sell. Yep. And that's when I found Zize.
Great. Yeah, that's what started the business. Is actually I found out I was too heavy, and I'm like, I can't be the only big person that wants to ride. So
it was a real wake-up call. That more than the stent bothered me, that I was now too big to ride. I weighed too much to ride a bicycle safely, and that's what folks have to understand. You're taking a real risk if you're as I am, obese, and you get on a bike frame that's not built to carry that weight, and that frame fails because of your weight, you could die. I mean, the bike fails and you're on the highway, and all of a sudden you veer off into traffic or into the ditch and hit a tree. So this is life and death stuff.
Yep. Yeah, it's important stuff. And I mean, the chances, I think, of a catastrophic injury are relatively minor, but who even wants to take a minor chance, right?
Well, that's the thing. And, I was just doing this when you came on just now. I was Googling, and excuse me, everybody, and I don't mean to offend anybody, but fat people on bicycles, because that's how I started my search, right, to find a bicycle that could support my weight. And unfortunately, or fortunately, there are plenty of videos on YouTube, if you search that, where you'll see catastrophic bike failures and the results of those. So it's real. It happens. It doesn't happen all the time, and your bike may not fail. It may last a year, 2 years. Who knows at what point the metal is going to fatigue or the welds are going to fatigue and fail. And you just don't want to take that chance. Exactly. And with Zize, that bike, I believe, is rated at 550 pounds. So I've got no fear of riding that bicycle, no fear of failure, complete confidence. And as we talk, I think confidence is going to come up again and again and again, because that's such a large part of being successful in any exercise program. Is you've got to build up self-confidence, and that takes time, and it takes quality products, and you've got to have the right tools for the job.
That's exactly right. And I couldn't have said it better myself. That's perfect. So when you decided to actually buy a bike, or you called me, I remember your phone call, and we talked. You were, I mean, basically it was because of the stent that's what triggered it. And then you discovered that bikes weren't really safe enough for your weight. So
correct.
So when I think about what problem you were trying to solve, it was basically you're just trying to find a way to get exercise. Is that what you would say?
Right. Exercise is, diet and exercise is what it comes down to once you get into that situation. And diet is not a problem for me. Fortunately, I was able to cut out the booze right away, which is making a huge difference in my life. Getting 95% blood flow back to my heart is making a huge difference in my life. And I'm eating to live now, and I mean, 35 years ago, I was overweight and I lost 50 pounds. I've been through that, but it took me 20 years to get to the unbelievable 282. I mean, we're Green Bay Packer fans. They're 60 miles from our house. And on Sundays, I just cringe when I see that these linebackers and even offensive linemen weigh less than I do or did.
Yeah.
That's a scary reality. So, yeah, exercise had to be a part of it. Walking doesn't do it for me. I'm not a YMCA guy. I'm not going to join a gym. Biking is where it's always been for me, because time on a bike is time for myself and my mind. And to get that, while you're getting physical exercise, you're also emotionally exercising, which is so important, that your mind is in the right place.
Absolutely. And the other thing that I love about biking, those things totally, but also you go fast, which my body doesn't move fast when I'm going on my feet, you know?
Right.
And so it's like a high. Not only are you riding and cruising and your mind is wherever it's going to be, and then you got a big smile on your face, but you go fast, which is
right. And
cool.
I don't have a lot of hair, but boy, having wind in what I do have is makes me feel terrific.
Yeah, no, it's true. So now that you've been riding now for a couple weeks, I think 2 or 3 weeks.
Right.
So tell me what it means for you personally. Like, how do you feel? How do you like it? Tell me about that a little.
Well, I can tell you, and I will tell you. First notice my beautiful biking sunburn.
I do notice that. You look very healthy.
Yeah, it's not high blood pressure anymore. It's biking Zize sunburn. That's what I'm getting. And the redder it gets, the better I like it, because it means I've been outside and I've been doing something good for myself. All right. So and you didn't ask me for my advice, but this is the way I'm approaching it, and this is what's working for me. Mm-hmm. I got the bike, and I haven't exercised in years. It's been about 7 years since I started working out of an office in my own home. Mm-hmm. So my daily routine is get up from bed, shower, shave, walk to the kitchen, walk to the office, repeat, go back to bed. I mean, and that's gosh, if I was doing 200 steps a day or 300 steps a day, that was the extent of my exercise. So I knew when I got the bike, I wasn't going to get on it and ride 50 miles or 30 miles or 20 miles, or if I could ride 2 miles, I would be really, really happy. And this is the way I look at it. It's minutes, not miles, that count when you start this. At some point, it's going to change and become vice versa. After 3 or 4 weeks, or whenever I feel that my body is ready for it, then I can go start measuring my rides by miles and not pay attention to minutes. But my first week on the bike, I would actually just maybe 3 or 4 blocks, just kind of out and back, 2 minutes, get kind of used to the bike. Another thing that happens, I'm 61, and with age, you lose a certain amount of coordination and balance. I mean, it's what happens to the human body. So it took me maybe 3 or 4 rides to learn how to ride the bike again. I mean, they say, once you learn how to ride a bicycle, you always know, but it actually surprised me. Well, folks, it took me 3 or 4, the 3rd or 4th ride before I figured out, why is it so difficult for me to get on this bike? And one day I just accidentally had to my left pedal up at about 11 o'clock. And when I put my foot on that pedal and it went, and I rose and got on the seat, I'm going, that's how I do it. So something I learned 55 years ago, it took me 3 or 4 tries after all this time to learn just how to get back on the saddle. But and I laughed when that happened, because I'm going, wow, I am really out of it. But anyway, so I made the first couple of days, it was just out and back, 3 or 4 blocks. And then we do have Door County is a nice little hilly, rolly kind of a place. And there's a 1.3 mile loop we live in a development that it's got a very long driveway in and out on two sides, and
Nice.
I can leave the development, ride a little bit on the highway, and then a nice stretch on a back road, and another nice stretch on another back road back to the development's other end, and that's 1.3 miles. And it's got just enough elevation and flat spots and then downhill that I'm challenged, then I can rest, then I'm challenged, then I can rest and recover, and then I'm challenged again, and that just keeps repeating on this little 1.3 mile loop. And you know, the first time I did the 1.3 miles, I could feel every pedal going up every incline in the muscles in my knees, in and around my knees, because they hadn't been used for years and years and years.
Yeah.
So that was my first week, and then yesterday was my first double loop.
Wow.
Yeah, and the first loop is, well, the loops run around 9 minutes for me. Like I say, it's time, not mileage.
Yeah, I mean, you're just getting back into it.
Yeah, so I was doing, last week was all 9 minute, 1.3 mile rides. Yesterday, I did the first loop, felt fine, and I really noticed the improvement in my muscles and the muscle memory that you've got to build up. That by the end of last week and beginning of this week, going up some of the inclines that had challenged my knees, or not my knees, the muscles, no longer challenged me until I did the second loop. And then I could feel that resistance again in my legs. And that's when I knew I'm learning, I'm improving.
Yeah, you're getting stronger.
You've got to keep that up. So my goal for next week, then the third week, is 3 loops. And at that point, I'll be at 4 miles or so, but more importantly, about 30 minutes of exercise. And that's what I need to have every day is 30 minutes of exercise. So it's, when you get on the bike, you've got to have positive feedback. You can't come back from the ride and go, oh my gosh, that just about killed me, and I don't know if I want to get on it tomorrow. Maybe I'll do it in a couple of days. No, you need to do it every day. You need to build up those muscles. And that satisfaction knowing yesterday that I completed that first loop without any problem, and then I got into my second loop, and that made me feel so good. I'm actually wearing a pair of jeans today that I haven't worn for 5 years.
Wow.
And that made me feel so good. So I'm seeing all of these positive results from just a few weeks into this. And I'm already looking at my old suits, and I'm going, okay, now today I'm back in a pair of jeans I bought in 2013. Now I need to get into my 2010 clothes. So I'm thinking about it that way instead of waist size. So this is just be positive. And just the fact that you got on the bike, whether it's 1 block, 4 blocks, or 4 miles.
Exactly.
That's what matters, that you did it. And you can do it. Everybody can do it. But that's the Zize Bike. I can't tell you how comfortable it is. I've had no problem with bike butt. That saddle is wonderful right out of the gate. This bike is so well built, and it's almost like a piece of art, or it's definitely craftsmanship. I sit in my garage, and I was telling you this, that I love my bike so much. I backed the Lexus out of the garage, my stall. That now sits outside. My Zize sits inside. It's got its own garage stall, and I'll sit in the garage and I'll just look at my bike. I'm going, it's such a beautiful thing. That finish, that paint on it it's museum quality stuff. Yeah. But then when I'm staring at this, I'm going, and I got up once and I took a really close look at it. I said, well, there are no welds here. Where are the welds? And I turned around, I looked at my Trek that I haven't ridden for 10 years, and these big, ugly, looks like somebody took a caulking gun in the bathroom and just went, shoo, 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 and all this, it's an ugly weld. It's like, who did this and why wasn't there any pride in it? And I went back and looked at my Zize, and those welds are spotless, seamless. You really have to look to see that they were welded. And that's
nice
that
to
me,
hear. Yeah.
That's high quality craftsmanship. Whoever built that bike had a personal stake in it, and it's like I say, a work of art. So and then the other thing, the features on this bike, the disc brakes, you got to remember, and I don't know, maybe you've biked, you haven't biked, but I remember the old squeeze brakes. What do they call those? And they had the rubber. Yeah.
I should know this. I know.
Yeah, and they hit the rim, and that slows you down.
Yeah, right.
Well, any bicyclist, and I completely forgot this, but any road bike or even mountain biker knows that when you're on a descent, you have to pump your brakes rear and front. Otherwise, the heat from those rubber pads on the rim can build up so much heat that you have tire failure. It could blow the tube or make the tube come off of the rim. Dangerous situation. And now compound that by the fact that you've got a 280-pound guy riding the bike and going down a hill and needs to stop at a stop sign. With these disc brakes are hydraulic. When I realized that, and I was adjusting the brakes, I was playing around with the bike, and I'm watching YouTube videos on how to adjust brakes, and somebody showed, and if it's a disc brake, it won't have this little cable. I'm going, well, I don't think my bike has that little cable. And I went out and looked at it, and I'm going, these are hydraulic brakes. Disc brakes. I can stop on a dime on that thing, and I don't ever have to worry about them failing me or not being able to stop when I absolutely have to stop, or my weight causing the brakes to fail. Right. So this bike is so feature loaded. And let me talk about the gearing. It's an 8-speed bike, and I had concerns about that. And I asked you about that when I was talking to you the first time about the bike. You know, I'm used to riding a 21 speed with a granny gear, so I can go up any hill, no problem. And I'll tell you, the first few rides on the bike, I was down in one on any kind of an incline at all. But even on my little 1.3 mile loop on the hardest incline, I only have to go down to 2 now. And I'm working that up to 3. And every time I can click that up, it's showing improvement. And again, that's giving me positive feedback. Absolutely. So I'm taking all these cues from the bike, and I can tell you that it's plenty. You've got enough gears to work with. I haven't ridden it in the 8th gear, and I don't have to ride it yet in the 1st gear. So there's plenty to play with. For a straightaway, 5 is just fine for me. Again, it's minutes, not miles. And when I was a road biker, you know, my nose was always down and looking at the speedometer, and I needed to go 20 miles an hour or 18 miles an hour. But that's not the point of this. The point of this is the exercise. And I'm not worried about how fast I'm going. I'm worried about putting in time on the bike, minutes, not miles, and not speed yet. So, I mean, that will all come. But
right. How do you like the internal gears, Curt?
I really love the internal gears. It's quiet. It's the shifting is smooth as silk. And did I mention the fenders? We haven't gotten any rain yet, but it's very comforting. I know from touring what fenders mean when there's any water on the road. You're not gonna come back from a training session or a ride with a big stripe of ice cold water down your back or mud on the front of you, because it's got the most beautiful fenders. It is such a classy looking bike. It's not. The Zize bike is designed, like you'd look at it, and sometimes you look at a bike with fenders and maybe a Basque, and you go, yeah, kind of, you know. But no, this is, you look at this bike and you go, that is just pure class with the fenders and the fact that everything on my bike is black except for this cherry red bike. I'm so proud of that bike. I
love it.
Almost want to get off and park it so other people can see the thing.
Admire it. I love it. I love it.
Yeah.
What would you say, like, what was the reason you decided to purchase the bike? What's the reason you almost didn't purchase it? Like, what were your concerns?
It was the gearing, knowing that what a granny gear is, which for those that may not know, it's a really tiny gear up on the pedals. You may have 3 gears up there, the really big one for going really fast, and then the middle one, and then the granny gear just puts you into, you can basically climb any hill or mountain in a granny gear on your lowest, your lowest. But I had never ridden, well, I haven't ridden an internal gear, since I was a kid. So it's 50 years ago. And I remember those and the little click thing. And, I never had any problem with them. And at 10 years old, I really didn't care. But from riding road bikes 30 years ago, I knew what those gears meant and what they did for me. Yes, and that was my biggest concern was gearing. Is it going to be low enough for me? Because I do have some hills and inclines, and I didn't want that. I don't mind. I haven't had to get off the bike yet and walk it up a hill, and I won't be embarrassed when I do have to do that, because I'm not a kid anymore. It's going to happen. In fact, this is an interesting story. Just last week, I needed to run to the market, which is maybe 1.5 miles one way from the home. And I thought I just needed to pick up some leeks for some soup. So I thought, well, I'll take this ice. And I rode it to the market. And on the way back, I had the uphill portion on the way back where it was downhill on the way to the market. And I had to stop 3 times. I pick out a little spot up ahead of me and say, okay, I'm going to get 100 yards and just stop. And you know what? It was all right. There's nobody laughed at me. Nobody, it was, hey, Curt, you can't, it doesn't.
What you're doing? You rode your bike to the store and back,
Yes,
So what if
yes, but in rehab, and everybody's saying, well, you got to go to cardiac rehab so they can tell you, when you're pushing too much. No, I know when I'm pushing too much.
Right.
And I'm not going to fight this thing. I want to enjoy the bike ride. Right. And guess what? I stopped the bike and I just rested for a few minutes, and I looked at the blossoms on the apple trees, and, a bull didn't rush me and kill me, and a car didn't explode, and my house was still standing when I got home, and the world's fine. So, you can do that. And it's at this time, at my stage in life, the 61, and I'm not in a hurry anymore. I want to enjoy it. And that's the other thing about the Zize versus the road bike I used to ride. I'm in an upright position, extremely comfortable, but I'm not looking at that speedometer in my front wheel all the time. I'm looking at the scenery. Right. I'm looking at what life in the world has to offer me. And that's the beauty and pleasure of bicycling, and especially on the Zize. You're sitting up. Now, okay, the downside of that is when you're going into a wind, you're going to have a lot more resistance to you. But just click down the gear, and do 4 miles an hour instead of 6. It's okay. You're going to get, you got all day to get there, and just plan your ride, plan your day, but don't make it so unenjoyable that you don't want to ride the bike. You want to ride the bike.
Exactly. So, I mean, you want to encourage yourself to enjoy it and to keep playing. I mean, I really consider it play.
Right.
It's a little bit of work to get myself on the bike, because I have to psych myself up. And after, I've been selling these bikes for 13 years and I'm still uncoordinated getting on them. So, I can tell you that is not an unusual event, but it's still, every time I get on it, I start smiling. They're just so much fun.
Absolutely. The pride, the sense of self-pride, self-worth, confidence. I can't tell you what that means to me, and the Zize is making that all happen for me. Like I say, change my diet, cut out the booze, but exercise is that third leg on that stool, and the Zize is making it possible for me to get that exercise. And I've got a doctor's appointment, I think it's 2 weeks from now, And I can't wait to go in, because when I went in 3 weeks ago and they said, "Oh, how much exercise you get, Curt?" And I said, "None." Now I can go in and say, well, right now I'm riding 30 minutes a day is my goal for 2 weeks
That's
from now.
huge.
So I'm going to be so proud to tell that doctor
Yeah.
that, hey, I'm doing 30 minutes times 7. I'm no good at math. It's several
That
hours.
doctor is also going to be really impressed with how your body's changing and improving, because like you said, you're going down in pant size and you're clearly feel so much better. I mean, I didn't know you before, but just listening to you, I can tell,
Right. Yeah. So it's as nice. And I suppose you were expecting me to also say when, what is keeping me from buying the bike, maybe you were expecting me to bring up price, and I'm not. Price never bothered me. That wasn't a consideration at all. First, go to your local bike shop. Take a look at the bikes they're offering for people of your size and shape and age, physical activity. And you're going to see some really old-fashioned cruisers that aren't meant to go more than a couple of miles at one time, maybe just around your development, around the block to visit and chat with the neighbors. That's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. So anyway, price, not a concern with me at all. It's the quality, and that bike is going to last me for the rest of my life, and then it's going to go on to somebody else. And this is actually what I'm thinking too is, when I am able to ride 35 miles a day, I want to be doing it on the Zize. And this is my goal, and I've wanted to do this for over 30 years, is ride the Natchez Trace. From Nashville to Natchez or vice versa. And I've already done the research on the web. I've got my itineraries completely laid out. I'm going to ride it from south to north, 442 miles. I'm going to take 13 nights to do it, not the 6 or 7 days that the big athletes are going to do when they're 30 years old. I'm 61. I want to enjoy this thing. So I'm going to take 2 weeks and I'm going to ride the Natchez Trace. Now, it's going to take me all summer to get to that point. Yeah. In fact, there's a hill right outside my development, and it's a pretty good hill. And my plan is to just keep riding up that hill as far as I can go, and then just coast back down and come home and
do it again.
And just keep doing that day after day. Eventually, I'm gonna reach the crest of that hill, and then I'm gone. I'm gonna ride.
Like, I made it. I'm going on my trip. Yes.
Yeah. So that's my goal, and I can see it every day. I see this hill, and it's my nemesis, and I haven't started my plan yet. But my plan is eventually, I'm just gonna start at the bottom of that hill and see how far I can go, and I'm not gonna push it, not gonna fight it. Turn around, coast back down. And maybe do that a few times a day, a few reps, just like any weightlifting kind of program. You've got to have some repetitions and just gradually increase until I get to the top of the hill. At 4 o'clock, I like to go out and get on that bike instead of having cocktails at 5 o'clock. Now my stress
routine is that,
is at 4 o'clock, get on the bike, come home and have an iced tea, and then make a healthy dinner, watch a little Wheel of Fortune because I'm 61, okay? So
I'm with you.
Life is good. Life is good.
So yeah.
Zize is good.
So let me just think, is there anything else that I want to ask you? Is there anybody particular that you would recommend that they think about getting a Zize bike?
Any cardiac patient, anybody that's got to go through cardiac rehab, and they need the Zize bike. And unfortunately, I mean, there can be people who are not overweight in any way, or not obese, or have a very, their BWI or body mass BMI is perfect. They can have heart attacks, and they do have heart attacks. But sadly, America, most of us are on the heavy side, or as I am, obese. And I'll tell you, the first time I saw that on a doctor's report, the words obese, or the word obese.
That's me.
this can't be me. Who are they talking about? But it was me.
Yeah.
So anybody that, especially cardiac, but anybody that used to ride a bike and wants to get back into it, the Zize is the perfect vehicle for that. But especially if you're overweight. But listen, this bike is, like I say, once I want to lose 80 pounds and I want to get down to 200 pounds, and this bike will still be my bike. I won't need anything else, and I won't probably want anything else because it'll do everything I want. I've already ordered some accessories, my bike rack and things, and then
All
I
the
got
fun things, yeah.
I'm going on a Natchez Trace.
You're gonna need your doodads, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I'll tell
But
you,
it's a gorgeous bike.
My husband is not a heavy man. He's 200 pounds, but he's like 6'2". So, he's relatively trim. And granted, now he has little access to Zize bikes, but I mean, that's all he rides. That's all he wants to ride. He loves them.
Sure.
He really loves the bike that you're riding, the time of your life. He finds that so comfortable, and of course I do too, but I have a little prejudice since I build them.
Well, of course you like it so much you built the company. This is, again, talking about the way this bike is designed and the comfort level of the bike, the way you have moved those pedals forward, about 3 or 4 inches versus a standard bike where they're kind of right under the seat.
Right.
It is so easy to ride, so comfortable to ride. And the fact that those handlebars are up and the grips are perfect, you don't have that pressure on your wrists and the numbness in your hands at the end of a ride. The saddle, I've already said, is very, very comfortable. I'm not coming off of there with a numb butt. And now those are all critical. You've got to be comfortable on the bike as well as safe. And then you've got a stylish bike to boot. It's phenomenal. I don't know how you did it. I'm your biggest fan. I can't wait to tell people about Zize Bike.
Well, I am so happy you're so happy. And
I'm thrilled.
Really
I'm absolutely thrilled.
You're taking the time to talk to me and tell my people that are looking for bikes, just tell them a little bit about your experience with the bike, because I think people like to hear it from somebody other than the owner.
Yeah, no. This is when you contact, and I'm doing my research on Zize. I've seen your videos on YouTube and the interviews that have been done before, and I was really honored when you asked me if I would consider doing one. And then I couldn't wait. I was so excited. Like you said, I logged in about 3 hours ago just to make sure I was ready to go when you began the program, so that I had the opportunity to, shout out to the world how great Zize bikes are. Now, in interest of disclosure, I'm not your brother. I'm not your cousin. I don't know you other than your name is Joan. But I'm your biggest fan. It's been a dream come true to find this bike and to get it as part of my life when I really need it the most. I can't thank you enough, Joan, for what you've done for older, heavier people. You're truly a lifesaver, and your Zize bike it's a gift from God for me.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate those words of praise. It means a lot to me.
No, I should. You're a great person.
So listen, you go out and get a bike ride in. And have a wonderful afternoon if it's going to be a nice day. And actually, I'm at my daughter's in Knoxville right now, so I didn't have a bike with me, but that's all right. I'll go out and go for a swim maybe. Thanks so much, Curt. It was great talking to you.
You're very welcome.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye, Joan.